Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody.
What's crack-a-lackin', Janice?
Not a lot.
Just
all right.
All right. If you're logged on right now, you are watching Off Color, a very special shit you should know edition, which we're going to talk about some things that we think you should know as an educated and informed citizen. Okay, so we have a few guests and things like that. Denise is managing it. If you are just tuning into Off Color for the first time, I need you to know that my opinions do not reflect the opinions of anyone else on the show or our partners on this very special Off Color triangle, as well as Hope Tank. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that?
No, we're good. All right.
I think we're amazing. So yeah, so we keep it real. We're talking about today. I come to you as an artisan, not as a partisan or whatever. Is that a thing I can say? Artisan? No. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we're also streaming live out of my house, obviously. Don't look behind me. Just stay focused on me. God, people, I look good. Okay, that's not partisan, right? That I look good, right? That's like an indisputable fact of truth, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get into it. If you happen to be seeing this right now, go ahead and give it a share, even if you're not going to watch the whole thing because you're out in these streets or whatever you're doing. It's mainly because we want to make sure we're getting this out to as many people as possible beyond our regular networks, because I know we all like to preach to the choir. I mean, that's church. That's why we go. We want to feel good. But for this episode, we are doing, it's going to be nonpartisan, and we wanted to get out to people who maybe got that mom that is voting for someone, you know what I mean, and you don't like it, but you think maybe she could be swayed. This might be an opportunity for her to really connect to the issues in a new way, if you know what I mean. All right.
It's also an opportunity for voters who maybe have not been as engaged up to this point or are brand new voters, the young people in your life. So share it with them. We're going to cover a lot of Civics 101 type of stuff, you know, how to read your ballot, how to research your ballot, and then where to return your ballot to when you are all done.
Research your ballot, read your ballot, return your ballot. The 3 R's. It's like reading, writing, arithmetic. But
sure.
And you need to be literate to do it. So let's think about that a little bit too. All right. Are we ready to get this crack-a-lackin'? We got
absolutely. Let's go ahead and introduce our co-hosts today.
All right, so we're gonna bring on, now I've got very special things. Now we don't always have people of this caliber on Off Color, all right? We don't always have young community leaders like this that want to participate. Well, except when they do want to participate. So I'd like to welcome back to the show. You may remember this young person from our Off Color episode, Environmentalism. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the great, the beautiful, the powerful, the lovely Jared Bynum.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Rebecca.
Hi, Jared. Can you just let me know what it is you're doing here, why you're doing it with Off Color when you know damn well Off Color is for the people, and talking about it's nonpartisan, but it's nonpartisan, y'all. Okay, so tell me why you wanted to do this today, who you are, why we're here, and then I'm going to have you bring on your co-host. Hit it.
Absolutely. So who am I? That's a great question. I haven't really figured that out yet. My name is Jared. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I'm an environmental activist. Really, I'm a community justice activist and an advocate. And in that realm of work, you can pick any issue you want, but if it's not accessible, it's not real. It's not that real work. We have partnered with you today because the work and the conversations that folks are having around voting are very partisan. And that's fine. That's great. We go to the ballot when we have opinions. We go to the legislature when we have opinions. However, somebody who has not yet finalized what they're thinking about needs to have an opportunity to understand what is being asked of you as a voter. When you're getting these 6-page ballots in the mail, when you're getting that thick blue book stack, we all should have an opportunity to read that and to understand what our own values are and what we're looking to get out of giving our vote. And your audience, ideally include some folks who haven't yet had the opportunity to really finalize what they're looking at in the world and what they want to get out of this. So we're doing it, in the nonpartisan space because we have some awesome nonpartisan folks, some nonpartisan experts coming to speak to us today. But also because regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, you should be able to be an informed and engaged voter. If you have opinions about how your community should be, about what rights and services we should have, then you deserve an opportunity to understand what's getting sent in the mail and why this November election is so important. Without further ado, should we bring on Kira?
Yes, I think that Kira is someone I don't really know.
Well, hey. Hi, everybody. My name's Kira, and I am, much like Jared, a concerned citizen. I actually got to meet Jared while we were both working at the state capitol together. So that's kind of my background. I did work in a partisan role there, but now I work sort of on both sides of the spectrum at a private company doing policy analysis. And so I'm going to help folks kind of go through like how to research a ballot and why it's important to do informed research and how we can give you information that's unbiased. So I'm really excited to help you all out with that, and I'm really excited to be here. I think Rebecca's platform and Off Color is a fantastic platform for us to get out to people that are outside of our normal circles. I have a lot of people who are traditionally politically engaged, and I see a need where nearly half of people in the United States either are not able to or don't vote, even if they're eligible. And I don't think that's right. I think that we should do as much as we can to get people voting and turn out, because I think as a whole, it's going to improve the quality of our elections and our elected officials. And so that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to get started today.
Woohoo! I love it. All right. So in traditional Rebecca style, I arrived late and didn't look at anything. Also, in traditional Rebecca style, just to be very clear, there are the reason I do this stuff is because there are so many things that I don't know, and I get so surprised by the information that I get so excited, and then I want to like share it with everyone because I'm like, oh my God, because I'm thinking highly educated Miss Henderson over here doesn't know it, then anyone could not know it. So if it seems too basic for you, then feel superior. But most people, I guarantee you, do not know the information that they need. Okay? Who wants to help me?
That's true.
That's true. And along those lines, we're actually going to play a little game to start us off. A little bit of a test your knowledge situation. So, all right, everybody hold up one hand. All right, we're going to play Put a Finger Down, okay? If you are on TikTok, you're familiar with this, right?
I'm not on TikTok, I'm too old, but carry on.
All right, so put a finger down if you know the name of the governor of your state. Put a finger down if you know the name of both your state's U.S. senators. Put a finger down if you can name at least one of your state's U.S. representatives in the House of Representatives on the federal level. Mm-hmm. All right. Put a finger down if you know the name of the Attorney General or Secretary of State of your state. Don't know that I actually could say that off the top of my head. So put a finger down if you know the name of at least one person on your city council. Oh, pretty good, pretty good. All right. Hopefully our audience did just as well. If you did not, we're going to put a link in the comments where you can go put your zip code into the search line. It's also going to ask for an email, but you don't have to put in the email. You can skip it. Just put your zip code in there. It will list every single representative for you, where you live, down to the district of your city council members. So we're going to put that in the chat, and make sure you go and look at that later. All right. And with that, I'm going to step to the side because I'm going to be running all the bells and the whistles. I got to work. Woo! And I'm going to let you guys take this one and run with it.
Okay. I don't run anywhere, as you all know. So
you run with your girls, though, don't you?
I do. No, sorry. I did try to, I did try to promote myself. It's not partisan. It's artisan,
There we go. We got art. It's artisan.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. It's beautiful. Okay. So let's get it popping off. You guys, I want to find out what's going on. We're having you arranged this for me, which I like, right? So we're trying to figure out who represents me. Is that what we're doing right now, or is this just a little fun fact activity for people? This is an interactive workshop, you guys.
We should do it. I'm curious to see like how deep this tool goes, especially considering that of the questions we asked, we didn't even go over some of the less well-known offices. For example, you know, like we have the Denver Clerk and Recorder coming to talk with us today, and that's an office that a lot of people don't know is elected.
Yeah, that's
District attorneys, we have judges. There's a lot that goes on a ballot. There's a lot of individuals who are beholden to the electorate.
Yeah,
it's so true. And I think a lot of people also, like, you know, our ballots are going to be huge this year. You know, there's rumors of like 6+ pages for some people. That is a lot of information, and it's going to be a lot to take in. And if you aren't familiar with these offices to begin with, it might make it more confusing. And so it's important to kind of pay attention and try and figure out what those sort of niche offices really do. Like the Clerk and Recorder, that name is not very descriptive. So what are they going to do for you? And that's all stuff that we're going to get into a little bit later.
All right. Okay, so we're putting it in, I think. Oh, look, someone put in my zip code.
Wow.
So this is where I live, the highest income zip in the metro area. Yeah.
Central Park represent.
Yeah, Central Park. What? So we're looking in here. This shows you all of my. Wait a minute. Is this what's on the ballot? Someone explain this. This is what's on the ballot right now?
This is all of your representatives, the people who are representing
you
through all the different levels of government by the looks
okay.
And I think it's really cool they have their pictures with it. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Well, the ones who don't, you know what, I think the same thing of them. I think when people don't have their picture on Twitter, shady. So I feel like you should probably make sure. Yeah.
No catfishing politicians. We don't like that.
Ooh.
Bird dog.
Listen, mixed race people are in a mood about that this week, so let's not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I did not realize.
People pretending to be black.
White girl misstepped over here. I'm sorry.
Oh, look at my city council person.
Herndon. Wait, this is nonpartisan. Let's not even go into it.
Guess what? Nonpartisan. The city council is nonpartisan. All the municipal offices are nonpartisan, actually.
That's correct, yeah.
I can say what I want because that's some shit you should know, that municipal elections are nonpartisan, even though Denver's like a progressive democratic city, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just something I think people should know.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, so I think you posed a great question, Rebecca. Who of these folks are even on the ballot this year? And I would propose that maybe this is a great segue into inviting our first guest on.
We have a guest? All right. No, just kidding. I know that we are really excited to welcome Josh Abrams from the Legislative Council Staff Aid Office. Is that an excellent introduction or not good? Josh, tell us.
Thanks, Rebecca. That was just fine.
Nonpartisan. It was fine.
Yeah, that's right. Legislative Council staff. And hi, Kira. I now recognize your face. I didn't know the name, but I think that I had seen you sitting on the floor of the House or the Senate, perhaps. Did you work for the House?
Yeah. I used to work for the Speaker of the House and then later for the caucus staff. So yeah, we definitely run into each other.
Which speaker did you work for?
Becker.
Okay, just the most recent one.
Yeah. So I left the Capitol in 2019.
Gotcha. Okay. So you missed all the fun of 2020.
Yeah. Kind of glad for that. Not gonna lie.
And Jared and I just met yesterday for the first time. And Rebecca, good to meet you. Legislative Council is the nonpartisan staff of the General Assembly, our state legislature. Almost every state legislature. In fact, I'm positive that every state legislature has a sort of similar full-time, permanent, nonpartisan staff that is there to do the research and sort of the objective data gathering and writing for the members.
Okay, so I have one question about that, and I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that, but I don't care because I do what I want.
It's your show, isn't it?
Yeah, but I do want to know, like, that's something to me. Why do you have to have a nonpartisan staff? Like, and how can you is everything about you a secret? Are you registered as an independent? Like, how do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, take your identity out of your politics or whatever.
Those are great questions. So as a staff and legally in statute are required to be nonpartisan. And so we take certain personal actions to not be publicly political in our daily lives. So for as simple as not putting yard signs on, not, signing petitions, anything that could just sort of be a public statement of our political position. All of us have political positions, but we leave those at the door when we come to the office, and we just look at the objective data and facts around legislation and policy ideas and changes that might be being suggested by the legislature. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you ask why, why do legislatures have these? Well, if you rely only on the information that comes from someone who's sort of driving an agenda, it may or may not be as accurate as you need it to be in order to make an informed decision. So for everybody, whether you're on one political spectrum or another, if you simply said, well, what does this measure do? And that member could say, well, here's what it does. You may not be getting exactly that objective, third party, no dog in the fight analysis of the bill or the legislation or the policy change that you're thinking about. So that's why legislatures wisely employ full-time, nonpartisan staffs to do all kinds of things around researching and writing and doing legal work, and all of the folks who sort of just manage the day-to-day operations of a legislature. They don't care who wins elections. They just have to, make sure that the institution functions day to day.
Does this have anything to do with you?
Yes.
Because I found this.
And you're in Manhattan or you're in Denver? I'm a little confused.
I'm in Denver, unfortunately, for everyone in the city.
Yeah.
I stay in my house, Corona. Okay. But I thank you for asking. Yeah, did you, I wanted to talk about this because if people get this delivered to their house, I'm wondering if people who are watching, if they've ever received this before or something like this for those of us who are watching from not Colorado.
Yes, in Colorado, they're probably very used to receiving that because for many, 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 many years, anybody who's a registered voter, any household that has a registered voter receives one, right? We don't send it to every registered voter, but if you have a registered voter in a house, and there may be more than one, then that house is going to get one of those booklets. There are other examples of voter guides in other states, but I'm not as familiar with how they work. Ours in this state is both constitutionally and statutorily required to be nonpartisan, conducted by the agency that I work for.
That is some good information, by the way.
So the Blue Book it's kind of a huge deal then, huh?
It is one of our primary tasks as a staff, you bet. I mean, it is a very big deal for us as a staff. It's what we do when we're not looking at bills specifically that the legislature is running. And it's certainly a public service that we take very seriously and try to do good work for folks. And we apply that same nonpartisan approach to all of these citizen-initiated and in some cases referred measures, such that the decision maker in this case, which is the voter, has the same benefit of that kind of analysis and nonpartisan objective staff that our legislators have when they're considering decisions that they want to make. Right? So we are essentially creating a decision-making tool to help you sort of see what this measure does and to try to frame that measure. One thing that is different in the Blue Book is that we are required in the Blue Book to write arguments. So we're required to provide some voice to both the for and the against arguments for any measure that appears here. That is very unique for our staff. We never discuss the merits of a policy idea in our other work for the legislature directly, right? It would just never come up. We would never say, oh, well, this is the argument for or against. No, that is for the members and the advocates to argue amongst each other, and for the members to consider when they're going to make that vote. But our product in that space is never ever speaks to arguments for and against. So that is just something unique that we also try to do for the public, is try to frame some of, not always all of, or even the principal arguments you might hear, but we also include arguments for and against.
All right, hold on. Let me see. We're going through this ballot, I believe. I like paper because I'm a former librarian, but I also like digital so everyone can access it. I had a question about this though, because when I get these ballots, I look at it and I can barely, I'm highly educated. I speak 2 languages, and sometimes the language is very confusing, I think.
Well, you have to learn another language, legalese.
Yeah, so I think, can we talk about that just a little bit? Let's hit it.
Sure. And for Colorado, and in this particular document, it's again, something that we provide, some of the value add that we do is that we do decipher that language, that 4th language of legalese, into lay language in our analysis and our write-up.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't, it's not a substitute for reading that legalese, certainly if you're a legislator, but it does help the public sort of scan over that bit of language and sort of get to maybe a little more understanding. But it's a great question. You'll see in this, there's, in addition to our write-up, there's a ballot title, and there's other sort of formal labels on things that you'll see, and it does get confusing.
Mm.
So if I could ask Josh, something that I'm seeing is that we have amendments, propositions. I've heard referred questions mentioned. What's the difference between these types of, like things that we're voting on the ballot?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jared. So amendments, in Colorado, we can change either our statutes or our Constitution. And when we amend the Constitution, we call it an amendment. So typically the things you see in your blue book this time that are amendments are in somehow going to change the constitutional language. Propositions are the other, which is just statutory changes. And is there another? And that's all you get. That's all you have right now. You have propositions and you have amendments. I guess the other thing that is sort of a distinction is that some of these are initiated by citizens, and some of them are referred by the legislature. So you'll see that distinction as you sort of dig into these. This was a measure that was referred by the legislature to the ballot. Here was a measure that was initiated by citizens. They took it through the process. They collected signatures. Now it's on the ballot, and we're going to vote on it.
How can you tell the difference though between the initiative or the proposition? Like, how can you tell the difference?
That's a great question. You would probably have to read each one of these to know. I know which ones were referred. There was only a few that were referred. But actually, once they are on the ballot, I don't know that we make that distinction for the reader. That's a good question.
Well, that might be something that people might want to find out, because I got to tell you, knowing who proposed what will influence your vote.
Yeah, absolutely, and yep, I think that's very true. Oh, wait a minute, look at that. Stop right there. Do you see how it says Amendment C placed on the ballot by the legislature? Well, I take it all back. I don't even know my product that well. And scroll up. So I know certainly B was, right? C is. And 76 was a citizen initiative. So there you go.
Okay.
And you can also see, this is something else that's unique to Colorado, is we pass laws. They're just hang there for a moment. You can see that because it's an amendment to the Constitution, we recently changed that, and we can only pass that if you have 55% of the vote. And it tells you that right there in that short space.
So there are different vote thresholds for different types of measures?
You bet there are, and that's a change that happened in the last couple of years. Also, I think done by initiative, right? We all voted on it. And right now, if you want to place a measure on the ballot as an initiated measure to change the Constitution, you have to collect signatures across the state. You can't just collect a gross number of signatures. They have to be distributed across geographically. And then if it's a change and not a straight up repeal, it requires a 55% vote to pass, whereas anything else just requires 50% plus one or 50% plus whatever. Does that make sense? So it is a little bit harder, to put something on the ballot that changes the Constitution, and it takes a little bit higher threshold to pass for constitutional changes. The same measure, if you wanted to sort of embed it into the statute somehow, you don't have that same limitation on placing it and getting it passed.
Absolutely. So you touched on the difference between if we're amending the Constitution versus if a proposition is just going to be statutory, which makes it into a law.
Yeah.
When the citizens of Colorado are voting on an amendment to the Constitution, is there a way for the state legislature to overturn that or to affect that?
Great question, and that's exactly the reason why it's in the Constitution, because the short answer is no. No, they can't. Not without going back to us for a vote. So when there are proposals to amend the Constitution, it's probably because there's something limited in there, and the only way to make that change and to get the law to change is to change the Constitution, and the only way to change the Constitution is through a vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So a statutory change, we're just going to change the Colorado Revised Statutes, this massive volume of the law, which we're changing all the time. Every single session, we add things, we delete things, we make modifications to things through the regular legislative process. So if a measure is passed into statute, technically speaking, at any time in the future, with enough votes and with the governor's support, et cetera, the legislature in that process could make changes to that statute.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's fine, guys. I know what everything means in this blue book, but
Wait,
I guess. Go ahead. Question?
No, you should ask your questions. Because I realized that the more Josh is speaking, the more I want to go into like really specific things that I had questions about as a legislative aide. And I'm like, if the goal of this event is to be super accessible, then the questions I'm about to ask are going to make this helpful. So let's focus.
I'll tell you if the question is not good, because I'm not afraid to say that. Like, this is boring. People don't need to know that. People want to know, like, what they want to know what they need to vote for, and they want to be able to understand what's on there. I know that the one example, if I may I give an example? Is that okay? All right, here I go. When we were trying to abolish slavery from the state constitution, right? The language, the first time that it ran, the amendment, I can't remember what it was, but it was like confusing. There was a lot of controversy over how it was written and so on and so forth. And so once we changed the language, this time it passed Amendment A, and people were like, vote yes on A because A means abolish. And like,
yeah. That's a great question. Or, well, I mean, go ahead and continue. Is there? I mean, that was a great example of our blue book now sort of has a slightly different format, because of that, right? Because we realized that product that went out, and it wasn't because of how we wrote it. It was the language was in the ballot title itself, and in the actual text and title was a bit confusing to people. It didn't matter how much we explained it in the write-up; they still didn't quite get it. Or at least that's the theory behind why it didn't pass the first time. Is that enough people get? And we do now, have that section where a yes vote means this, a no vote means that. We repeat that like twice in this voter guide before you get into the very dense text of reading. If you really want to go down and understand it at a much more deep level, which I hope that folks will, then you need to read the whole analysis. And I think then a yes vote means this and a no vote means this is going to make a lot more sense. But you'll see that, right?
All right.
And that was very specifically, and it's still confusing. For example, this year, there's a measure that was passed by the legislature, and then in Colorado, because enough people signed a petition to halt it, it now has to be affirmed by the voters, having to do with the national popular vote, and people are very confused as to, well, what does my yes vote mean? What does my no vote mean? It's confusing.
Yeah.
And then I don't even know. Well, I know we can't ask people how to vote on stuff. We're gonna do a different episode about that without any partisan people, and I will let people know. And the ones I know. Okay, this is incredible. Thank you so much. I feel like having you here is so helpful, and I'm really grateful that we're able to have a nonpartisan legislative council that has to appear on this crazy left-wing radical podcast because it's your job to keep us all informed, right?
Well, we appear in a lot of venues. Certainly, we work in a very highly charged partisan atmosphere, but that's sort of part of the fun of it. It's a front row seat on all that, and we're allowed to sort of take that step back and be the nonpartisan staff and be quiet and shake our head knowingly and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I just think about it though as like part of my like consenting to learn in public is I never paid attention to anything like any of this before. You know what I mean? Like, I would never have been, so interested in who writes the blue book. You know what I mean? Like, I think before I got so involved, I remember when I first voted in Colorado, I was amazed actually. You could register to vote the same day that you vote. Like, I wasn't registered, my registration was messed up. I had to go down there. And I remember sitting in the room and like going through the ballot and like looking at this for the judges and being like, what is this? But I had to vote because it was a presidential election, right? It was like 2008. So I wasn't going to like mess around. But now I've realized that I need to vote in more than presidential elections. I need to vote in every election, like literally every election.
Right.
Oh, do you guys tell people when there's elections or no? Who does that?
Well, that's again another fully nonpartisan staff that's run. The Secretary of State is a partisan position, but the Secretary of State's office and all of the county clerks who are nonpartisan staffs at the local level, they handle that, and they do all kinds of outreach and information dumps to get people to understand when. And yeah, in Colorado, you can register right up to the last day. We have some of the easiest registration process, I think, in the country.
Who made Colorado an all mail-in ballot state? How did that happen? Do you know? Is that about you?
No, I think that it was probably a combined effort between the secretaries of state, and it did have to pass through the legislature and become law through the legislature. But I think that they've done it now. It's been since I think, 2013 or earlier that we've been on an all mail-in ballot, and I believe that sort of where I live, we were on a mail-in ballot. Like the county had done a mail-in ballot for a long time before it became statewide. So it's something in Colorado that we're really used to. I mean, it's all this talk outside of the state. We're really used to mail-in ballot.
I know, and it's very shocking to me. So I was wondering, when can we expect our ballots? Because we were supposed to kind of talk about the life cycle of your ballot.
Yeah, it's coming. Scott, I believe it comes. I think your printed ballot will probably arrive the first weekend of October.
The first weekend of October is next week.
Yeah.
Does everybody else know what day it is? Because
I'm pretty sure it's somewhere very soon, because this blue book product that we send out is timed in a very specific way to be mailed, in tandem, or not in tandem, but sort of this goes out, and then within another 2 weeks is the deadline or so for everything else to start going out. So I suspect in Colorado we'll see those ballots very soon.
Wait, so who decides when that happens?
Oh, it's all in statute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all spelled out very carefully in statute, and deadlines are spelled out in statute.
So what if I'm like following an initiative or something that's referred from the legislature, and I'm curious about what the process of it getting on the ballot looks like? Are there conduits for public participation there?
You bet. There's all kinds of there's all kinds of resources on our website at the General Assembly and the Legislative Council staff website about the process, because we're intimately involved with it from sort of submission. It comes to our office before it goes anywhere else, as you know, submitted by a citizen. There are hearings that occur. There's a title board that has to set a title. There's a petition that has to be approved and collected. And then what you're looking at there, each county also has a process. Denver has a very robust process to do exactly the same thing. And I believe that they do a voter guide, although I don't live in Denver, so I'm not sure.
You know who does live in Denver? And who knows about what happens with that?
Yeah.
Somebody that we have coming on.
Oh, that's right.
You might know him. You may have seen him before.
Right.
This person is a nonpartisan elected official who is going to help us talk about something. What is it called? Welcome. It's good to see you. We have Paul Lopez, the Denver clerk and recorder. Thank you so much for hopping on here today. And I just couldn't help but bring you in just a snitch early because we're gonna have we have Josh. Do you guys know each other? Have you ever seen each other before? Or?
You know, he looks familiar, but hi, Paul. Good to see you.
How you doing, man?
Okay.
Just one citywide election or two.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But I wanted to know, yeah, Denver, that was one of our questions was, does Denver have a voter guide?
Yes, we do. And it gets sent out pretty soon, actually. And, you know, we make sure that anything that's either a referendum or amendment, that there's pros and cons, and we have a window in which, you know, folks can submit those kind of comments, and then they get sent out. We do have a blue book that's printed and sent out. There's always a debate on whether we send it out via mail or just have it online. You know, it's the debate about trees, but we do the best possible. I mean, this election, you know, like any other elections, they're important. So, but yeah, we that will be coming out to you very shortly. And just for the information that I heard backstage, ballots start being sent to voters October 9th. And yours truly, we paid for first class postage so they actually get to you sooner to give you a little bit more time. We did that move, and then, you know, in kind of response and in anticipation of what was going on with the president and the Postal Service and the dismantling of machines, and then just kind of a lack of there. So I don't want to bet on it. I don't want to wait, and I didn't want to see what happens. So we went ahead and just upgraded those ballots to take every possible measure we can take to make sure that voters get their ballots on time.
Paul, I wanted to ask, so we got to get a nice overview of how the state process of you know, developing a ballot, developing a blue book looks like. And your office, the Office of the Denver Clerk and Recorder, is in charge of a lot of the elections work for Denver. I'm hoping that you could talk a little bit about your specific position, as well as what the function of the Clerk and Recorder's office is in relation to, maybe not in relation to, but like as opposed to how things function on the state.
Right. I mean, elections, a lot of what you see with elections, laws, dates, important deadlines, things like that, those are all state laws, state statute. And, you know, what's trying to be achieved is that all 64 counties in Colorado kind of have a very similar, if not the same, deadlines and protocols that, you know, that way voters can expect parity, and that way there's no voter confusion across the state. There are some things that, you know, each county is able to do differently. Number of boxes, there's a minimum number of boxes, minimum number of voting centers, you know, mail ballot formats, things like that. So our office of the Denver Clerk and Recorder, been around for quite a while in the charter. However, it was not independently elected until 2007.
Oh.
Wow.
And those of you who are around. So my previous life, I'm a old school community organizer, union organizer. I've been doing this since I was 13 years old. Absolutely love it. Just GOTV, voter reg, sleeves up, knocking on doors. I think I was 13 years old and we were naming the old Westwood Elementary School that was knocked down because essentially it was made out of lead and asbestos.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
It's a thing, right? And we wanted to name it after Richard Castro, who was a champion for bilingual education, and he fought English-only initiatives. And he was just a true champion of the people. And so I was 13 years old knocking on doors to change the name of that school. So civic participation is a big deal. Denver Clerk and Recorder. After all, so we used to have an election commission. I don't know how many commissioners existed, to be honest. They were all elected. They all had one, they had like an executive director under them, and it was a shit show. So, long lines, everything. Those of you who remember 2006 was not good. So a new model came about. Stephanie O'Malley was the first elected clerk and recorder, Black woman. Started making a lot of the reforms that we see now, setting the stage, building the foundation. Really kind of turned things around. It's changed leadership over time. The clerk and recorder essentially is a county function. So election, so you have clerk and recorder, the deputy clerk and recorder. Here's what we're in charge of, right? Elections, right? I serve as the chief election official for the county. I also serve as the public trustee. A lot of people don't know what that is. Back in the day, so we just make sure that it's a public entity. The city and county of Denver oversees the foreclosure processes, whereas in other states, it's a third-party private entity. We did that way back when because of all the swindling of what was happening with land back when, and I would argue still happens. This last recession was just evidence of that. So we make sure that process is fair. We educate folks, we provide resources for folks, but we don't take one side or the other, right? We are the facilitator of that, and that is the public entity. The other thing is marriages and recordings. So your county records, deeds of trust, marriages. It's all marriage now, right? Love is love, and you don't have to differentiate, but you have committed partnerships, civil unions. So that's all part of what we do. I am ordained by the Church of the Dude, the Latter-day Dude. That's me. If y'all want to get hitched, I could do it. I could show up and no, I shouldn't do that. But I get in trouble for doing something like that, especially in my own church. They haven't seen me in a while.
That's a good question.
They haven't seen me in a while, so if I do that, I'm probably going to get in trouble.
I know, that's what I'm wondering though. Because before you agreed to come on though, that was something I was curious about, because I feel like things and I asked Josh sort of the same question about being nonpartisan when it's like, come on, man, you're like a community organizer, the knockdown, you know what I mean? Like,
but I can look, I have my own affiliation. I have my own beliefs. I'm an organizer. Y'all may have seen me in other capacities, but my job as the chief election official, my job as the clerk and recorder is to ensure the fairness, the transparency, and the security of our elections. So I don't get to have a choice. My job is to make sure that all the voters have a choice, and they're doing it in a way that is without interference or without bias, right? And part of what we do. So the last thing that we do in the clerk and recorder's role is our municipal records. So campaign finance records, financial disclosures, officer gifts, things like that. We process all that. We retain all that. City contracts, they stay with us. The city charter, city contracts. I sign off on all of them. I attest on all the mayor's signatures. We are the steward of our city records. That includes our charter, that includes our ordinances, all that stuff. So anytime council passes an ordinance or a proclamation or a contract, it comes to me at the end, we sign it, and we hold on to it, right? There's millions of them. And last year we disclosed one that we found between a said individual, Martin Luther King Jr., and the city and county of Denver to do consulting.
Absolutely. So you just raised an interesting point that I wanted to ask about, Paul, which is when you are, like assisting people in making sure that we have like free and fair elections.
Yes.
You are doing this work to ensure that like we have ballots
Yes.
that are sent out. I wanted to get into this idea of like, so we have our blue books, our ballots are coming. What next? How do we understand and research our ballot? But I myself am actually not going to be the best person to go about that. Should we bring back Kira?
So here's the here's the thing. I'll jump on here as much as possible, as much as you need me to explain the process. So the first thing, here's how we say it. I mean, the first thing is we want folks to register to vote. Even if you're registered, we want you to go back and check it and double check it and triple check it and make sure the zip code, the address, all of it is right. We want
How
you
would
to
they go about doing that if somebody needed to go check their voter reg? What's the easiest way to do that right now?
GoVoteColorado.gov. Yeah. I'll put it in the chat too. GoVoteColorado.gov.
Awesome.
You can go to our website. We link up to that as well too, and we do that in Spanish as well. And our website is denvervotes.org/voterinfo. And then you can go to denvervota.org y lo puedes hacer en español. And you can ask for assistance in other languages. We had a town hall with our Vietnamese community on Thursday, so we were able to walk through a lot of folks online, and they're going to be able to save the video and use it for their purposes. And we did that in Vietnamese.
If somebody would need a special accommodation, So if somebody would need a special accommodation, like say maybe they don't speak English or Spanish, so it might be harder for them to find a ballot or understand theirs, or even if they aren't really sure how to interpret the blue book, where would they go to get assistance with, maybe disability voting if they need assistance?
We're asking 311. All they have to dial is 311 from their phone.
Okay.
And in a few days, option 8 will be live, and they hit 311 option 8, and it goes to our folks. All they need to be able to say is that they need assistance. And we also have links on the web as well for that on our website. If folks need assistance, we will actually print ballots in 5 other languages other than English. So it's actually pretty legit. So the first thing we do is say, hey, register to vote. 17-year-olds, if they are turning 18 by November 3rd, don't go buy a pack of smokes.
No.
Don't go
or
to
Juul or
that. You do all that other stuff later. The main thing you should be thinking about is going to register to vote, right? And so they can do that now, but if they turn 18 by November 3rd, they're going to be able to cast their ballot. Yeah. So
what's the earliest you can register to vote in the state of Colorado?
All the time. You can.
I think it's
register
as early as I think age-wise though. It's as early as 16, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And here's the thing: we don't want to confuse a lot of folks with. There's some things we don't want to confuse a lot of folks. So what we're really trying to push people to do, especially speak to those 17-year-olds, to get them registered to vote, to get them prepared. We want folks, and it's not just 17, so 17 on up, right? Register to vote, get signed up for ballottrace.org. It's also on our site. That is our tracking engine. And now if you're in Denver County, it's called Ballot Trace. If you're in some of the other counties, it's called Ballot Tracks. It's a private company. Ours is ran by the city. Super solid. It's wicked. You can get text updates from your ballot. It's like, yo, I'm being printed. Hey, I'm heading to you. And when you put your ballot in the mail, and we get it, it's like, hey, I'm at the clerk and recorder's office. I'm at Denver Elections, and then hey, I've been counted. So you get a check-in from your ballot. You get to trace it.
Yeah, I get those text messages. I know, I love them. I get them emailed too, I think, and it gives me peace of mind, especially given the current situation with the USPS, which we can get into later.
And then you also get your sticker.
Yeah.
You can share it to Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, just like knowing like where my ballot is really kind of gives me peace of mind. So I really like that.
Rebecca, you're laughing at me because I'm being funny, I think.
You're hilarious. Hilarious. No, you're just like a real legislator.
Well,
No, wait.
not legislator anymore. I'm a clerk now.
No, sorry. I was drinking, and I was like, oh, is that part?
See, now I'm being sad because I do remember that life. But I love my life now. It's actually good. I love being the clerk, by the way. And so first thing is register to vote, sign up, double check all of your information, and then your ballots are going to get mailed to you starting October 9th, and you have till the 26th to put those in the mail. And awesome. don't worry, don't fret about that. I was on a call with USPS here locally with all the other counties. They're like, look, we're committed. We guarantee that the ballots are going to get there. Like I said early on, we wanted the ballots to get to our folks soon, ASAP. So that's why I did first class. We couldn't trust the confusion, the back and forth that was happening on the national level. So we put it out there just in case. The 26th is the last day to pop it in the mail. But that's good to know. Yes. So and for it to get to us on time. But this is what I'm going to tell folks. We have 38 boxes around the city. They're secured 24/7, camera monitored. They're solid boxes. They're vote boxes. Go put those ballots in the drop box. We increased it by 10 in the last year in anticipation for the presidential, and anticipation just, and this is just part of, what I campaigned on, and I'm what I committed to. Someone that's been in every nook and cranny and alley in this city is making sure that every communities like Swansea, Elyria, Globeville, Montbello, Green Valley Ranch, Westwood, Athmar, like every single Windsor Gardens, where a lot of our elders in the city live, that they have access to a ballot box, right? Tivoli. I mean, I couldn't believe we never had one at the Tivoli with all the students that were there, right? And so you can find those boxes at Denver Vote. There you go. denvervotes.org/voter info. 3 ways you can vote. Put it in the mail. All you need is one stamp. Put it in a drop box, or come in person. I'm going to tell you this, even though we have 36 vote centers that are going to open up all over the city, including our mobile unit, the safest way to vote, especially during a pandemic, is just to pop that thing in the mail or take it to a drop box. And you can do that, and you can take it to a drop box the second you get your ballot, all the way to 7 p.m. on the last day to vote, November 3rd. Now, notice that I said that and not election day, because seriously, we have like election month. Right. Yeah. So with mail-in ballots, that's a beautiful thing about mail-in ballots, is that as soon as you get it, you can vote, put it in the box all the way up there. But I'm going to tell you this, please, vote as soon as you can. Don't procrastinate. Only because I could tell you our universe now is 503,000 registered active voters. This is the first time we've hit that 500,000 mark. Wow. That means that we have a whole bunch of election judges that are sanitizing, putting on masks, but also social distanced. So we're not all cluttered up, and we don't have that kind of capacity to be able to process as fast as we could have in the past. I mean, I'm thinking we're looking at about 85 to 90 something % turnout. I would love to see 100%.
My goodness, that's fantastic if we can get there.
Right, Kira. And here's the thing: if you mail it to us sooner, we can process it and prep it sooner. Remember, these are human beings that are poll workers and that are election judges. They're not elves that come in overnight, and they're not machines. Although we do have some machines doing the tableting and stuff like that. So, Rebecca, I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking about what a wonderful job, in my experience, the Denver elections has done. And I feel like one thing I would recommend is to follow them on Twitter, because Twitter is a little bit more lit than you would think it is, especially during election time. Okay. And so there was that, and then the other part I wanted to kind of remind people of is, again, the idea of the pandemic. Everyone who knows me, like, personally, knows that I do not go near anyone. You will not see me at a rally. You will not see me at a march. You will not see me at your birthday party. Like, you're not going to see me because I'm not trying to get the coronavirus. And so I'm also thinking about our poll workers, who typically the average median age for them is skews towards the wisdom age.
Yep.
So they shouldn't be out there, man. So I think that there's also ways you can volunteer, I believe, right?
So
is that a thing?
No, Rebecca, I'm glad you brought that up. I was a little worried. So, a lot of our election judges are elders, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are folks that are retirees that are doing extra income. I thought because, maybe they were just doing that, they are amazing. But yes, a lot of them are that target age, or they, I think of, somebody that I grew up with, and I see him in there, and, I know dude's got an oxygen tank with him, right? So here's the good thing. Is that we are following all CDC and health protocols, CDPHE. So all of our election judges have face coverings. They are 6 feet apart, social distance. We are disinfecting all of our supplies, our desks. After every voter goes and touches the screen, we wipe that down. We also have shields, right? That we have put in place. But here's the thing. We have a great model. Am I still on?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't see anybody else. I apologize. We have a great model with mail-in ballots that long even before a pandemic, you don't have to come in to vote in person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Rebecca's 100% right. You don't got to go in. All you got to do is just.
Hey, sorry, I heard you say Rebecca's 100% right, and I just wanted to reiterate
that. You can record that.
Yeah, that Rebecca is 100% right. Thanks.
We got that on record.
Oh, look, my Venmo came in. No, I'm just kidding. No. So check this out. Look, you can count on us. You can count on your voting experience being safe, being secure, being transparent. We are in the pandemic, and let's not forget that. So if you can, and please don't wait till the end to vote. Vote, sign your ballot. It's really important. Put it in one of our drop boxes, and we're good. And you voted. And you know what? And we can process that. In the June 30th state primary election, we had 50.2% turnout. And a lot of people say, oh, that's low. That's high for a state primary. Now, in that state primary, 99% of all voters voted either through the box or through the mail.
Wow.
Which is incredible. And that's what we want folks to be able to do coming up for November. Just drop it off in a box and you're done. You're good. You don't have to come in to vote. I mean, I'm not trying to discourage. Look, if you want to come in to vote in person, but please use a mask. Keep your social distance. But like I said, instead of going and because COVID's out there with us everywhere we go. Don't feel like you have to go in person. You're in a mail ballot state. Take advantage of that because there's so many people out there all over the country in different counties that don't have that. And for all that information, anything you need, hit us up on denvervotes.org/voter info. You have a sample ballot. That's an interactive ballot. We had, a great guy, Joe, who used to work with us. That there's this idea, we were able to get it up online. It's a little sample interactive ballot. It's pretty cool. And you can go in there and just practice before you actually vote.
I think that's a really good point to bring up is that because our vote period is basically a month long, we have so much time with our ballot and with our blue books. I mean, I've already had this for a week, almost, at least a few days.
Yep.
We have the opportunity to do really quite extensive research, in my opinion, because we have time to get our ballots in. We're not walking in there and trying to make sort of split-second decisions. And if you forget your blue book on a 6-page ballot, or however long they're going to be, you know, that can be really tough and confusing, and I think discourage people from filling out their ballot all the way. So how do you think that the clerk and recorder's office kind of helps contribute to transparency as far as like getting information out there about what is on the ballot and who is backing our candidates financially? Like, do you have a reporting system? Do you have information about who's on the ballot and when, and who's backing them?
So here's what you can do. So let me just kind of wrap up this a little election spiel for folks. So get on us, denvervotes.org/voter info, register, update your information. Ballots will be coming to you the 9th. Beginning on the 9th, you have until the 3rd, 7 p.m. to get them in. It's pandemic proof. It's easy. It's super easy to vote. When it comes to the other function you were talking about, candidates, we are in charge of municipal candidates' records. So the muni election or any kind of initiative that has or amendment that has been that has filed a campaign finance committee that has raised any money, those records are with us as well too. You can go to denverclerkandrecorder.org and you can see that we have that campaign finance button. Right now, it's a little convoluted. It's it's a little complex. It's not very user friendly. One thing, I'm glad you brought this up because I get to brag. One thing that we're doing is we are re-engineering the city clerk section, that municipal operations section that I was talking about earlier, those city records. I would like to see, and this is the system that we're building, and we've already gone through a lot of process, securing the vendor, getting everything ready. The ability for you to be able to look up your, elected officials or candidates, see who's given to them, see who's taken them out to eat, who's contributed to them, which officers in the city have received any kind of gifts, whether it be a hat or a t-shirt or whatever, and all those kind of financial reports, and then being able to have access to the contracts. Now, there's not everything that you'd be able to see because there's some things that are proprietary in nature, right? But being able to be able to put 1, 2, 3 together and make that user friendly, that would be awesome, and that's what we're working on right now. So you can do that. You can do that right now with all the folks that are have active campaigns or past campaigns, past reports, finance reports. You can get in and scope that out, but you kind of got to go through everything and scroll through everything. Yeah. I want a system where all you got to do is enter the candidate's name or the committee name, and bam, it's all that information right there. Their financial disclosures or gift reports, all that.
That's fantastic.
And I know even lobbyists, right? And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're totally fine, because I was going to jump on that too about the lobbyists as well. At the state level too, to look up, who's backing all of these ballot initiatives statewide. There's also the Secretary of State hosts a website called Tracer, and that has information about all of your statewide candidates as well as information about who's backing these different ballot initiatives.
Like for the state stuff and the federal stuff, you got, for those candidates in those seats, you got to go to the state or you got to go to the feds. But for our municipal election that we're going to have in 2023, hopefully the system's going to be up and running. So, and here's the thing. Look, I ran for office for the first time in 2007. I was reelected 2 more times. I was elected to this seat. So, there's a lot. Even as a candidate, I thought, man, if only people looked here, we can make this better. So that's why I've decided to re-engineer our city clerk division and really make it like a sunshine division, and kind of give us so what I'm working for is to give us teeth to be able to initiate investigations, initiate fines, and really start holding people accountable and creating this area of sunshine under the law that people can, look up and hold your electeds and officers accountable.
I got a question for you, Paul. Is that something unique to Denver? Are you guys Denver really taking the lead nationally on something like that, or have other larger cities done anything remotely like that?
Denver's taking the lead in the state for that with the others. I mean, we are really doing, this is something that we put our heads together and are just trying to put together, right?
Interesting.
But this does exist in other counties, in other states, and other, governments and stuff like that. Like I was surprised that we hadn't done this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into California and California's kind of state system, you're going to be able to do that. You're going to kind of be able to follow that money. And we are, there's other counties and cities that do that across the country. I want to make sure that folks in Denver have the same opportunity.
I would like to say something that is not, I don't know about, as you know, I'm working on a documentary about, but it's about the municipal elections. I'm not going to hash all that up. We're getting ready to finish it up.
I was going to say, man, I've been waiting. I waited for Mulan this whole time. I got ripped off with Top Gun Part 2, And I'm waiting for this to drop. I mean, if it wasn't for The Mandalorian, I'd probably go nuts, man.
But I do feel like the big thing that I learned from it was the money piece. So I'm really glad to hear you, as an elected official, say, okay, I want to have that kind of transparency. Because for me, seeing that, when I saw, because I know who all your donors were, okay? I know. It's all public information. And then, it's out there, and it's not as hard to access as people think it is. 100%. And I feel like once you start looking at that, your eyes, you'll be like, damn. And then you start
to what happened. Yeah.
It is really eye-opening.
Small businesses, where what you're doing, what restaurants you'll eat at, right? Thinking about knowing. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there that I learned a lot. And when my movie comes out, everyone's going to learn a lot.
So that's good, Rebecca. And here's the thing, some of us here on this call and folks that are in the know and know where to look, we can do that. Yeah. It just takes a little bit of time. But I want to make sure somebody like my aunt, man, or my comadre, get out there and be able to go do it, right? I want to make sure that it's easy and user friendly. And you ain't got to do this whole research, right? You ain't got to take a research methods class to be able to do it. You can just get online and see it. And then it also, I think a lot of times we think of negative connotations when we think of campaign finance and stuff like that. But it's also a very powerful tool to see, oh, okay, that's cool, right? You mean this? You mean Lopez got a bunch of donations from little restaurants all around in his district? That's pretty cool, right? Oh, you mean the little taqueria, when it did that? Yeah. So it's actually really helpful. And a lot of people have to be an elected official is tough. Over time, the word politician, it has become very negative, right? A negative connotation with that because of trust and because all this backdoor stuff that we hear about. And a lot of times people go after elected officials without really looking at their history or whatnot. So this allows folks to be able to see and maybe, maybe I was wrong about that. Right?
I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think voter education isn't just.
Rebecca, you're laughing.
Yeah, what are you?
I'm just telling you, this is PTSD for me, man. I get you got I hit over the head about something. I was like, man, I even take no check like that.
No. I'm just laughing because I think it's true. And you're like, well, you might find out you're wrong. And I'm like, or you might find out you were right.
Yes. Oh, I know. And that's the thing too. So, but it's super helpful to know instead of to wonder, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna know, right? I tell you what, when we were doing this, and in case in point, when I was a city councilman, one of the things I was super proud of is a first ever a community development agreement with it's a community benefits agreement with Mile High Stadium, with the Denver Broncos, the Metropolitan Stadium Football District, as they're kind of developing those parking lots that are just kind of sitting there empty and stuff. you know, I said, okay, well, as the councilman in that district, let's try to work towards making sure that those have a level of affordable housing, that they have small businesses, that they're using, like, you know, businesses from the community, that they have park space, that maybe one of those areas can have a grocery store for the first time in Sun Valley, right? And maybe it's not like Anaheim, where, you know, you're in a neighborhood and all of a sudden there's Disneyland right there, right? But it's almost like it flows. It doesn't look like, you know, Disneyland and then Sun Valley, right?
Mhm.
It's like it's up in there, and to the point where I've even had some folks criticize me, but like, oh, look at all that gentrification happening in Sun Valley. I was like, what gentrification? All those fancy buildings. I was like, oh, you know, there's a public housing, right? What? I mean, yeah, they have air conditioned units. They got secured buildings. You know, they got light in the windows.
I want to know how much it costs, what the rent is, who's happy to be living there. Those are the kind of questions I would ask, but I will not ask those particularly right now.
So, and that's the thing, is that you make it so it's one neighborhood and it's still Sun Valley, and you have, you know, off of this development, you got union jobs, you got the opportunity for affordable housing, for, you know, small business enterprise from the community, jobs that are set aside. And so it's those kind of things. So a lot of folks, and I'm bringing it back this back around, is that, well, it's like, oh, well, maybe the Broncos hooked them up. No, just doing it, right? No, well, maybe no, we were just doing it, right? And so that's the thing for us to be able to really hit home, right? Is being able to see that kind of transparency.
Well, you know? I really appreciate that. Now, before we kind of wrap up, we're not wrapping up, but now we have some serious questions that
yes, please. And let's make sure that we're keeping true to the whole election narrative, and making sure that if there's anything else you need to ask me with it in regards to elections.
Yeah, that's yes. Okay, no, everyone has to answer this. Everyone that knows the answer can answer it. Okay, I'm going to do a little quick little poll. Yeah. Ready? Okay, number 1. Can someone else turn in my ballot for me if I'm infirm?
Yeah. Yes. You cannot carry more than 10, though.
And what's the best way to return those ballots? If you're not returning one of your own,
put it in a drop
box. I was always
box.
told to make sure you hold up each one in front of the camera out by the ballot drop box.
I mean, you don't have to do it. Just look, turn in, don't carry more than 10. That's the state law. Yes, you can definitely carry somebody's ballot. You can't sign anybody else's ballot, but you can turn it in for them. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Great.
What if I'm in Boulder with a Denver ballot? No, you can actually put it in Boulder's box. I mean, here's the thing. If you are a Denver voter,
oh my God. I was like, wait, what? I got excited because it's like the same feeling I got when I learned, and I shouldn't tell people this, but now that I no longer have a job, I will say that if you return a library book from like anywhere, like in the world, seriously, the library will send it anywhere. Like all the we'll send it to your library, but you're gonna get fines because it might take like 6 months or something.
Yeah. So here's how your ballot. Right? You can. So let's just say this: if you are a Denver resident and you're in Boulder because you work in Boulder, you know, if you can within that long period to vote, drop it in one of our boxes. Do the best you can to be able to get it into our box. But if you were like, oh shoot, and you look in your purse and I'm like, dang, it's 6:45. You can put that. It's 6:45 on November 3rd. You could put that ballot in a Boulder box, and at the end of the day, Boulder and Denver swap ballots, because we get Boulder ballots, we get Aurora ballots. We get one time we got a King County ballot, man, from Washington. But we sent it out there. Right? And so
That's a waste.
It's not Rebecca mended. I wouldn't Rebecca mend doing it, but I do like the idea. It's the way I feel about those library books. Though. It's the same thing. It's like
we swap at the next day we swap ballots. So when we're sorting ballots, when we're receiving ballots, we put those ballots in their different trays. Jefferson County, some of them Gilpin, some of them Cortez, right? Like we sent them out. We make sure they get their ballots, and we make sure we get our ballots. So yeah, that's
Is
the
that
good
part
thing
of
about
why
us
it takes
working
so
together.
long to certify the election count at the end of the election?
No, so here's one thing. So let's talk ballot security for a second, right? And why folks should have a lot of confidence in what we do. So the first, we have what we call a logic and accuracy test in the beginning. We test our system, we run hand marked ballots, compare that to what appears at the end. We do this in bipartisan teams. At the end of an election, we have what we call a risk limiting audit, where random codes are drawn. It's an audit, so we produce those numbers, those ballots. Now, mind you, your names aren't on them, right? There's numbers. And so we do that at the end. The certification happens after the audit, right? And the certification happens with our board, and the board is made up from representatives of different parties. And we go through the election. They get to ask their questions. We kind of run through all of it, run through the data, and they sign off. I certify the election, and then the election's certified. That usually happens about 2 weeks after an election. So let's work backwards. That was the certification. Let's say that you sign a ballot, or you forgot to sign your ballot, and you were signing crazy. You sign like if you're running out of the bar at 2 a.m. All right. Rebecca, it's true. That's not your pretty handwriting when you do that. I'm not messing around. That's a real thing. Let's say it's your messy handwriting and not the handwriting you should have. Or let's say it's an individual who had a stroke recently and is writing with their left hand now. We have what we call signature verification. It's a signature verification process when the ballots come to us and we're starting to get them tabulated, ready to be counted. If there is a signature that doesn't match, or you forgot to sign your ballot, you have 8 days to cure that ballot. We contact you, we let you know. Now, if you're one of those folks like, oh my God, they didn't contact me, what happened? Did it go through? Did it go through? Yes. We only contact you if there's an issue with it. You have 8 days to cure it. You have 8 days to fix that. We have a form that you can download and print out. You can actually do it. There's an app called Text to Cure, a system called Text to Cure. You can do it from your phone. And then you have 8 days to cure that ballot.
Great.
A lot of people wonder what happened. Okay, well, what about all this talk about mail fraud or signature fraud? Look, if there is a signature that is obvious and that is something that is suspicious, we forward those to the DA.
Got it.
Right. And but for the most part, statistically speaking, it never happens. Like once every, I think it was like 5 or 6 years, and every I gotta send you the data, but you're good.
Rare.
Super rare. It's the most securest system and way to vote. And because of these different processes, right? Like I said, that accuracy test, the signature verification, risk limiting audit, bipartisan teams. You have Republicans and Democrats and unaffiliated. They work in teams as they're doing this the whole time. Ballot certification. It is pretty cool. A lot of it is super technical, and I am constantly learning. So.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that I work with a team of individuals who are dedicated. Some of them have been there for 3 decades.
Wow.
And so the reason why Denver's the way it is because you have decades of experience of folks in every from operations to voter services to administration to it's pretty cool. It's a good system. And you know what? Other counties are doing the same thing.
I want to know who runs the Twitter. It's good. Your Twitter is good.
Is that all you?
No.
I'm terrible at Twitter, so anybody who does a good job at Twitter or social media is.
You look at, man, I am crazy about grammar. It takes me forever. It's hard for me to boil things down to like 141 words. I can't do that, man. Or characters. My Twitter, when my Twitter's up, when it's me, you can hear my voice loud and clear. But we have a great team. We have a great comms team. Cassie, Amelia, Alton Dillard, who's been there for a long time, and Alton used to be a sportscaster reporter. So it's pretty cool. If it's like some funny meme and it's totally dorky, it's probably Alton.
I love that.
It's cool.
On our off-color Twitter, it just says, "This is by the host. Tweets may vary," because you never know like who's going to do the tweet, right? If it's
oh my goodness.
We have a great comms team. They work really well together, and they're out there trying to just put the facts out there. Be a trusted source. You can always rely on Denver votes and Denver elections to be your trusted source. I know we see a lot of stuff on Twitter and Facebook, and if you ever question it, and if it don't, go to denvervotes.org, hit us up at Denver Elections at Twitter. Like those are the facts. That's the trusted info that should be rolling out to you. Denver Clerk and Recorder. Those are the sites, the SOS, the Secretary of State's office. Those communications are trusted. We work together very well. Your county clerks. Yeah, we're lucky to be in this state with this kind of system, and it's super helpful. And the other thing too is something new this year is we have our voter engagement and outreach team. I have a team, and this is something that I wanted to bring as a vision of mine, is to kind of go back to the old school, because we realize that not everybody's voting in the kind of propensity. People still have access. We want to figure out why in this city some areas are high propensity and not.
Yeah.
We want to know what's going on. Why are some areas boxes, when we carry them heavy, full of ballots, and some are super light that you can even carry it with a finger, right? And so is it language? Is it geographical access? So we have a team that's going out there and making sure that we're communicating, listening, working. So we basically have organizers that are out there. Grace don't like it when I say organizers. Basically, no, but it's good old-fashioned community organizing. It's what we would call engagement in the city and outreach, and they're
actually talking to people, getting their opinions.
Yeah, talking to people. They flyered the Westridge projects, or the Westridge homes. I'm sorry, kind of old school. Out in the west side, and also they were in Sun Valley. They had the list of all the DHA residents, and they were calling them from the voters, from their little community center there in Sun Valley, and people were coming to get their ballot, to get registered. It was pretty cool, right? And they were flying.
I got a question, Paul, about this. I like the sound of that. I feel your pride, and I'm excited for you. But I also wanted to know where can you find like the data for like who the vote? I'm looking for voter turnout by like district, precinct. Like, is that information available to the public? Like 100%. On the state level, like.
You can go up on our website and see past elections and then see that data. I can tell you something though, right? So you see turnout, but one thing that we're gonna post up pretty soon, and this was information that was shared with everybody from the Secretary of State's office and what they consider with their demographer, with DMV, the best mathematical guess we can take. Right, are eligible but unregistered populations in the city. Mm-hmm. So people who could register to vote, but are not.
That's my next one. I'm so sorry. I know you're the expert and everything, but I'm trying to like rush because that was something that came up to me from Running with My Girls, my documentary. But was the voter turnout, getting people registered to vote, like as far as upcoming elections and things like that. I know this is nonpartisan, but I'm not
partisan.
I'll go ahead and say it, is that I'm not trying to convince old crazy people to vote. Like to vote for my choice. I'm not going to do that. I want to register new voters. I'm like into getting people who maybe didn't vote, like people who are eligible to vote, like in the.
So, yeah, no, I hear you, Rebecca. So from my end, as your clerk, I have to focus on everybody. You know, we don't pick and choose. We make sure that everybody has access, and it doesn't matter if you're Republican, if you're Democrat. I mean, what you think on issues, if you're younger, older. What we want to do is outreach to those neighborhoods that may have those access issues. Again, like some of them are like these apartment complexes with hundreds of apartments, and there's a lot of turnover in those apartments, right? And so, or you have folks like in East Colfax with their Somali, Bantu community, and even meeting with some of them at a community meeting, they said, "Hey, look, we don't like to register to vote." And I'll tell you straight up. And I was like, "Why? What's up with that?" And they said, "Because we don't trust the government with our information." And I said, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, our address, our phone number." And it's a cultural thing, because I tell you what, I mean, I don't blame somebody coming from a war-torn country where, somebody necessarily walking around with a government uniform or whatever on your door is not necessarily a good time, right? So it's meeting people where they're at, one-on-one, explaining to them that this is a process that, it's a democratic process. It's easy to register to vote. If you really want to, you can be a confidential voter, right? Where you don't have your information. I mean, there's just ways around it.
What? I never heard of that before. Confidential voter.
Yeah. So sometimes, it's a forum with the Secretary of State if you want to be a confidential voter, but you're not going to get all the mail and stuff. You're not going to get a lot of things that, usually a political junkie like you would want to see, or like me. So, so here's the thing. The whole point is it's us going into the community. It's us.
Okay.
Having presence there.
All the community. Here's my next question. This is very important because this is something new I learned and I felt like people should know about it. Mm-hmm. What if you are one of our unhoused neighbors? What if you are not sure you're going to have housing insecurity? What if you're, I don't want to give you too many things, but I will say, just to get your brain ready for it, housing. And then also, what about our incarcerated friends and family? Or, for our people who are out, felony, parole, hit it.
So first, unhoused. If you're unhoused, that's no worry. You can still vote. There's two things that are required: mailing address, right? And then your physical location. A physical location can be your address, but it also can be a park. It also can be cross streets.
Not if you're in Denver. New.
Technically, if you want to vote, yes, and with our rules, yes, you can use that location as a physical location. Now, you still have to have a mailing address. You can use a PO box, or you can use like for example, you'll always see a precinct out there in the east side downtown. That's always like super like, holy crap, there's a bunch of voters there and they don't turn out. That's like St. Francis Center. That's shelters. They can receive ballots, and you can use that address as a ballot and ask for and that be your mailing address, right? So yes, our unhoused brothers and sisters in our community, they can vote 100%. Now, folks who are incarcerated, we do a sweep through the jail, and we just actually did that to make sure that folks are registered, but also that folks can be able to vote if they are in the city's custody. Right now, when it comes to folks who are felons, if you have an active felony, or let's just say this, let me say it the other way. If you were a felon, or if you had a felony, you can vote. If you have an active case, active felony, it's a little bit more sticky, no. But folks who have had that in the past shouldn't feel like they can't vote. That changed.
But if you have, I'm just thinking about it because of some of the like volunteer work I had done on some campaigns previously. I did encounter so many people who I was like, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" And they're like, "No, I can't vote."
Felon. Yeah.
But yeah,
like,
it's a common response.
And so I really want to like hit home on that. And then also, what would be a resource for people that we could easily send them to explain to them? Like,
hit us up. Hit us up, 311. Denver Votes. In a while, it will be option 8. And then also they can hit us up online as well too. We have a lot of answers, well, FAQ, stuff like that. But it's really important for us to be able to, for folks to be able to use that information. We also, subscribe to our Twitter, to, our Facebook, things like that. We push out information about that. Do you know? We remind you about certain key dates that come up in the process, but it's super easy. Rebecca, I when I was going door to door a long time ago, guys would say, "No, man, I'm an ex-con. I can't vote." And I felt like, damn, what a messed up thing.
That need to be voting the most. I feel the same way about unhoused neighbors because maybe, then maybe you'd have people on your council who like care about you and stuff, right? So like, I mean, I'm just in general, I'm not saying anything, but in general, if you are electing people, sorry, I will stop, or no, I won't, forget it.
No,
Listen,
go.
People need to vote, and that is my big thing, is like, voting is not enough, I don't think. So like, you need to vote, and so I want people to realize that like it does mean something, particularly at these local and state elections, because I do feel like sometimes for the in a two-party system, this is how we're living. Sometimes it does feel like your vote doesn't matter in the presidential election. I hate to like even say that, but where it really matters though is I think is at the local level, because if we didn't have Paul Lopez, for example, who, as our Denver clerk and recorder, a person who cares about community, who cares about making sure that people have access to the ballot in a variety of languages, and making sure that you're doing that, then you know what I mean? Like, you could have somebody like, I'm not saying nothing about Aurora, but you could get messed up over there and have your ballots get lost.
So you want. Look. Thank you. Here's the thing. I know I gave like the kind of short answer with, if I'm incarcerated and have a felony conviction, does it affect my voter status, or if I'm currently on parole, or if I'm in the jail? So there is a very helpful site, because there's different variations. This is gray areas with convictions, felonies, misdemeanors, all the other stuff, right? And people get all of it confused. Instead of, that is a show of its own, right? However, I put this on the chat, and there you go. That is something that is very helpful, and you can push out to, in your communications. It's the FAQ from the Secretary of State with those kind of questions. So as I said, they could be very gray in some areas, some specific, right? If you have a criminal case pending, if you're on probation, what if I have an official letter telling me, right? What if I was convicted of a crime in another state? So those are questions that they address there, and it's super helpful for folks. So yes.
Well, something I want to jump back to that you brought up, Rebecca, was talking about the voting and I think that, Josh, you might actually be really great to talk about this and sort of all of the various different ways that you can have your voice heard on different topics at the Capitol. I think it's really important for folks to know that there is a public committee for the Blue Book wording process. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that, how people can have their voice heard through the Blue Book process, and then also after the election, if say something piques their interest, Most of the time, there's usually some legislation in response to an election in order to implement a lot of these things that we're voting on. So how do people get involved? How do they know what's going on? Like, where are they going to look? How does legislative council play into that?
Well, that's a great question, Kira. And with the Blue Book, we do have a fairly robust public participation process, if you will. And really any interested party, including those who are in the campaigns for and against these measures, can get involved and make suggestions to our staff about what they think is important. And we have a very sort of iterative process. We do take eventual ownership of that as a nonpartisan product, exclusively our own voice, but we involve the public all along the way. And then once that's out and published, gosh, there's just so many ways in which voters can go and get additional information that's in addition to the Blue Book, online, obviously through the campaigns. And then, as you said, when the legislature is actually in session, and before and after as well, there's many vehicles for the public to make their voices heard directly with their members. Whether that's, I think the easiest and best way is to really contact your member, find out who your representative is, call that person, try to get them on the phone, try to get in front of them. But then there's also testifying in front of committees. There is all kinds of advocacy that goes on at the state capitol. And I guess I would only add, finally, Jared has experience with this, and perhaps yourself as well, Kira, in terms of there's lots of organized advocates, but there's also just a lot of room for the everyday citizen to come down and make their voice heard. And you can't always know that those organized interests have your interests. They may or may not. So it's always the best, I think, for those members to have lots and lots and lots of voices chattering at them. The more the better, because if there's not a lot of it, not a variety of it, they'll really only hear one or so message.
Yeah. I mean, Paul, how often do you get reached out to by constituents kind of chirping your ear about various things? It's probably a lot, and I bet it's overwhelming at times. So how do you kind of sift through that and ensure people's voices get heard, and how does your staff kind of deal with that?
Well, being that I don't have to fill potholes anymore.
Because as a council member, you probably got a lot more calls. They said, what happened to Paul? We don't know. It turns out that he's a clicking reporter now. As a councilman, you got a lot.
Yeah, no lo hago. So, yeah, no. You know what, I get them, and sometimes it just depends. Now, before as a councilman, it was like all the time, every day about something, like some kitty stuck up in a tree, right? No, but now it's mostly along the lines of, voting, registration, some of these questions. Oh, hey, people send me their registrations, and so I have to forward it on. So me and my staff, we have a little system about what pops up, but they're just different constituency issues. And you know what? I still get hit up. I mean, I wasn't a councilman for 12 years. All of a sudden, it just turns off, and everybody remembers that it turns off. I get hit up by it from everybody about everything, and I just forward those on, or I'll do my best to help. We just have a little system where we catch that. There are also certain emails now, whereas before I would have one email line when it came in, but now for marriages and recordings has a separate email, and so they go to those folks and they see those things there, right? So they catch them in real time. Yeah, but I tell you what, being able to help somebody through the process, it's cool.
It's rewarding. It really is.
Cool. Yeah. I used to say this when I was an organizer: "An organizer's paycheck is what you feel in here. It's not what's in your pocket." Right. And the same thing's true with being a public servant, right? There's just something here that it fulfills. I can't put words to it. I'm not that poetic, but it's like you just feel it. I'm gonna quote somebody at the risk of seeming ridiculous. A true love revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love.
So I think that we are starting to wrap up or heading into our transition.
Hold on, I got something to say.
Oh, you do? Okay, go for it, girl. I don't know what I'm doing.
No, the only reason I really liked what Josh said about the ordinary person being able to show up. That was a huge thing for me that I learned, again, through Running with My Girls, my documentary, but was also to be able to go down. I'd never testified before. Like, I'd never done that. So I loved it. I was like way into it. I was like, wait a minute, you have to sit there and listen to what I say and then write it down in the book? You have to? Oh, okay, I'll do it. And so, like, I feel like that right now, obviously, I'm not testifying anywhere. So, like, I think your dog, that was really funny.
He's really needy.
No, just okay. So I really liked that you brought that up, because I do want people to know that yeah, if you don't hear from lots of different people,
right,
then you won't necessarily, understand what's going on. And I know right now we have a lot of stuff coming down from, like, our federal like what words we can use, how we can talk about things. I think about the state bill, the Crown Act, that was for the hair, to not
hair discrimination,
right,
black hair, but also other hairs. And so, but I went because I felt like, even though I have quote unquote good hair, I wanted to talk about how I was impacted by that, and that it's just to show how big the problem is, that it's not just somebody who has long locks or something, And so I just really encourage people to do that and to take the chance on it, because you know what? I'm so sorry, but here it comes, y'all. They work for us. The elected.
Yes.
They do work for you.
Work on your behalf.
And it's
the only way.
And they're public servants sometimes. I do. I feel like you're serving the public, and we're all the public. And like, even if you don't like me and I don't like you, Corey Gardner, like, even if you don't, like, Corey, not around, he's not doing a good job to me if he's not calling me back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm still a constituent. I don't understand. Like, you work for us. And if we don't like it, we're going to take care of it at the ballot.
Yeah. And it's the only way that we can combat big money, PACs, any of this, like, sort of shady stuff, that any of that. Like, the only way that we combat it as a community is by having elected officials that care, by having good people in office, by having people participate and voting. That is the only way that we're going to get people to shape our society the way that we want to. It's the only way that we combat that.
All right, darlings. You know what? We're going to wrap it up, and we got to get into any of our final questions, Q&A. Can somebody put Jared in here? He was like, I got to say something.
Oh my gosh, no, I've been like...
You're muted.
I don't know if No, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I don't know if our
hit it.
viewers are familiar with StreamYard, but I've literally been sitting backstage watching this the whole time, yelling. No, so I have two questions myself. One was, can we talk a little bit more about Tracer? I understand that, Josh, you work in Ledge Council, which is in the Capitol building, and it's kind of nonpartisan staff. And then Jenna Griswold and her whole Secretary of State team is somewhere else. They're under the governor's office, and
they're under the Secretary of State. That's an elected, right?
Okay. Because we elect her. We elected her, and potentially might re-elect her. When the time comes. Fingers crossed. This is nonpartisan.
Yeah, technically an executive branch under the governor. She's got her own Secretary of State office, and her staff works for her. And similar to Paul being elected as the clerk and recorder, he doesn't work necessarily for the mayor. He works for the people who elect.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
We serve what I always say, and what I would always explain to my constituents and anybody in the city. I don't represent the city to you. I represent you to the city.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, and on that note, Mr. representing us, the city, I think you have to represent to go do something else. So I'm going to let you go. And I want to stop and thank you for participating. It takes a brave new person to come on Off Color. So shouts out to you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Go represent the hell out of us.
I like the title of Off Color presents shit you should know. You should know.
You should.
You should know this stuff. You should know this stuff. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Paul.
Hell yeah.
Wait,
No, okay, so Tracer. What is Tracer? How do I access Tracer? Like, what is everything that you know about Tracer, Josh?
I know nothing about Tracer. Right here. He's too big to get on my lap. So I
thought you were getting out like a big book or something.
Yeah,
like, that's why I was laughing. Sorry.
Level, there's lots and lots of good tools within our website to track legislation that's moving along. It is a little Byzantine, and as you get into a session, following stuff through the through its committees and all that stuff can be sort of a jump and a run around, as Kira knows well. And then here you have the Secretary of State's tracker and Tracer information. I believe this is where you go. Right. So
this is where we can find candidate info.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I have not played with this. It used to be much less visually easy. It wasn't a dashboard. It was just like a bunch of data drop that you really had to pour through. And unless you were guys like me paid to look at lots of tables, and you immediately gave up. So now that they've got these kind of Tableau looking visualizations and dashboards, I imagine it's a lot easier to go and play around and search and see where things are. I'll have to go and get on there and do that.
Okay. I need to spend more time on Tracer. No, yeah. Even looking at it right now, I know from your perspective, it looks a lot more user-friendly, but I'm still lost.
It's the odd one-off that you would want to go and really dig into this stuff, unless you're just a political player and you're really interested to see who's out there. You don't know who these LLCs are and these organizations are, and so again, interesting to have that transparency, and good that they've made it a lot more readable and a lot more easy to find. If I wanted to go, for example, and know all the lobbyists who spent money, who reported that they spent money lobbying on a specific bill, I could. That's not my world. That's not what I would have no reason to do that. But
okay.
But the information does exist, which is good to know. And I think
right.
Hold on. Stop. Go in there and find that. How can I find that information? I want you to do example. I get mad if I don't do it. Like, why would I look at paper?
One of the documents that we have lined up was it's on the Secretary of State's website, and it has sort of all of the ballot initiatives listed out for 2020, and it also includes some of the folks that are backing them. And I think it's pretty easy if we were to take yes on Amendment B, or even like keep property taxes low, we would be able to go into Tracer and use the search function to search for a committee and go in and figure out who's backing them. Because I think for me, keep property taxes low, who's backing that?
Yeah, no, there are a few that are in our blue book this year that, as a private citizen, I didn't work on those particular issues. I was like, who is behind this? Who is backing this? Which is something that I use personally, when I'm making my own decisions. I like to know, well, this seems innocuous enough. Why is it that none of the people I know are up, shouting about it? And then you start to look into it, it's like, well, the only people shouting about it are these guys, and I don't really have to decide whether I care or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in this case too, when you're doing your research, Google is your friend here. If you don't know who somebody is, but they're high profile enough to be backing a ballot initiative, they're going to have information on them somewhere.
Right.
Go figure out who they are. You have no substitute for getting information except for directly from the horse's mouth. Like, that is the best place, the first person direct source that you can get information is either by reading it yourself or the person who wrote it, like the reasons why they want something to happen or not happen.
Right.
Going to the source is the best way to get that information.
You need to make sure that you're,
a party or another organization.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, you just need to make sure that when you go and you find that issue that you really like, and you've got that campaign website for that issue, go and find the anti. You got to sort of look at both sides to know. But I think it is really important to know when you read something, you're like, well, I've never even heard of this group. Their name is very innocuous. This measure I don't really understand. I don't really get. somehow I think it's very important to dig a little deeper into who those folks are and where the, and who's pushing it as one of those tools to decide if it's worth supporting or not.
Absolutely.
And we're actually planning on going over some of the initiatives on the Blue Book on October 19th. So for all you podcast fans out in the ether, amongst others,
we're going to be
tune back in because
all many pages of this.
Yeah,
and I'm actually going to read them kind of sexily too.
Yeah.
No, if everything is according to plan, there may or may not be like like some verbal arguments, a little bit of cussing, maybe some threats that shouldn't be recorded in front of elected officials. We'll find out. Fingers crossed.
It'll be a good time though, regardless.
One other pitch for your viewers locally. Channel 12 does great coverage of the election, and they have Colorado Inside Out, and then another series that I think that the man's name is Dominic D'Souza, maybe. Just look up Rocky Mountain PBS Channel 12, and they do a lot of election series. And I always think their coverage is very, very good. And they will bring in and have, they'll have some of the members who refer to measure come and have a little debate online and talk about it. So again, another place to really watch election coverage in Colorado that's good, that's objective, that's nonpartisan, that'll sort of give you a sense of both sides of an issue.
I did have one more question, and this might, again, be sort of outside of your wheelhouse, Josh.
Sure.
But we kind of touched on it. We didn't go as deep as I was hoping. What is happening with the Postal Service? Can I even feel good about mailing my ballot? Do I just need to tell all of my friends and family that they need to guarantee that they're driving their butts to the voting polling station and get that shit turned in, or what's the deal?
Yeah, and it is out of my wheelhouse, except as a Coloradan, and as a Coloradan, I think we all sort of are very comfortable and know that we really don't have an issue with our mail or with the post office within the mail, and that if we postmark it and get it in the mail, it's going to get to our county election offices and it's going to get counted. And I don't. It's always surprising to me when I do talk to my family and friends who are in other places and hear about the experience of other states, no matter what it is and how different it might be from Colorado's experience. But I guess I would just say if you live within our state, there's really nothing to be concerned about. And I hope that most of your viewers will feel the same way. They should feel the same way. And that's not in any way a partisan perspective. That is across the boards. And even if you go back in time, and because I was in and worked on these issues all the way back when they changed, there was a little bit of partisan back and forth about moving in this direction. But now that we have and we've gone to all mail ballot, you don't find it is a bipartisan system that everybody is perfectly good with. We've had Republican Secretary of States, we have Republican clerk and recorders. We have Democrat clerk and recorders. We have some places where it's not, where it's required to be nonpartisan. Again, in Colorado, I think we're okay. I hope the rest of the country can sort of take a page out of our book and sort of step into the system as well.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. I'll double down on that, and I'm not even from this whole country state.
Colorado is my home. You don't know. No.
No. I'm just saying it's good. The voting there is good. I'm really appreciative. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. I want to thank everyone who tuned in live, and then to let people know, come back on the 19th. Any final closing words anyone wants to say before I say something wild?
I just want to thank you all for the invitation. This was a last minute thing, but Legislative Council loves to do this. Our staff loves to be involved in these types of things and to step out of our office. And so really interesting to hear from Paul and to hear more about how such a big county does its work. So thanks really for the opportunity to participate. It was really fun.
Thank
Josh,
you.
we appreciate you so much. And you mentioned that it was short notice. Do you mind telling the viewers how short notice?
Well, I think I got an email the day before yesterday, and then you and I touched base this morning. And I have COVID has tamped down my travel, so I don't really go much places anymore. Are you going to be around on Saturday? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be around.
Yeah, turn on a dime. We appreciate it. You've been fantastic.
It's really fun.
Well, this has been a Tan Tigress production in partnership with Triangle and Hope Tank. I'm your host, Rebecca Henderson, and this is Off Color. Shit, you should should know. Thanks for watching. Is that weird? Is that weird?
I loved it.